actually started fishing when I grew up on my parents' dairy farm in Michigan and absolutely fell in love with fishing. I convinced my dad, hey, why don't we build a pond in the back 40 and I'll be more productive. I'll get off the tractor. I can take a little bit of a break, get back on the tractor and do my work. Total mistake on his part. I was out there fishing more than I was working. Got in a little bit of trouble, but it was totally worth it.
How old were you?
I think at that point I was 9.
9, okay.
Yeah.
Driving a tractor at 9?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
What part of Michigan?
It was lower Michigan. I say right in the butt crack. It was Michigan, Indiana.
Tell me what that means.
Right in the crack when you have your
yeah.
hand. You
right
gotta
where
show,
your wrist is.
Yep,
yeah.
You got to show for Michigan.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like right there, right down at the bottom, the butt crack.
We lived in Midland.
Oh, I know where Midland is.
Point to my hand.
In the butt crack.
No, I wasn't. It was a little, felt like it was sometimes, but I wasn't. So you're on a farm in Michigan. You're 9 years old and your dad builds a pond?
Oh, it was so much fun. So we also had a lake nearby. And you have to understand, if you ever go to lower Michigan, our lakes are more like ponds.
Yes.
I mean, you have to drive in circles if you have a boat. It's really bad. We had a lake near us, and so we would go catch, smallmouth bass, largemouth bass, crappie, bluegill. I mean, just so many different things, catfish. And so we used that to stock our pond. We would go catch and release in our pond. So we'd have these 5-gallon buckets, walking down the road. And I grew up right next to an Amish community. And so the
quite
buggies,
a bit of Amish up there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Especially Shipshewana, where I grew up next to. So I'm not Amish, but I grew up in an Amish community. So you'd have buggies passing you, and you'd be carrying these 5-gallon buckets, just super happy because you knew that you were going to be able to catch them later. And so that was pretty much my experience growing up, being able to go outside and fish the ponds, a.k.a. lakes, and really enjoy it.
So that truly was 100% catch and release.
Oh, yes.
That was catch, transport, and release.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only fish I ever ate was fish sticks out of the freezer section, which I'm not sure is really fish anyway.
Some of the best fish that I've had from up there, of course, walleye. I love walleye, but we went up fishing a couple years ago now, steelhead fishing, and my buddy kept saying, oh, man, we got to get a perch basket, a perch basket. And I was like, I want some walleye. And I ate walleye the first night, but the one night we went out to a bar because it was the only thing open when we got off the river, and they had perch basket. I said, all right, I'm going to try your perch basket, and let's just see. It was so good. Perch basket with fries and a beer. And
it's the perfect after river food.
Awesome. Boy, it was so good. Welcome into Southeastern Fly. This is David Perry, and today I'm talking to Jessica Callahan of Jessica Callahan's Fine Art. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming out. We're high above the Clinch River today over in eastern Tennessee, about 3-hour drive from me and probably an hour or so for you. Is that right?
It is.
Yeah. So we're going to talk today a little bit with Jessica about several things, but mostly the influences that influence her fly fishing, not necessarily her artwork, although that's a part of it. We're not here to sell artwork. We're here to let you get to know Jessica and hopefully learn something along the way about fly fishing and hopefully give you a tip or two to be a better angler, even if it's just to come to East Tennessee, fish over here because there's a lot of good water over here.
Oh, so much.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing. Nobody come. Just kidding.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, it's really terrible.
You will not enjoy it.
It's snakes. A lot of big snakes over here. Yeah.
Oh, now that is real.
Yeah, there really are some snakes over here, but some of the waters are worth beating the snakes back. They have to be good for me to say that because I'm not fond of snakes at all.
Nope.
So Jessica told us a little bit about how she started fishing on her farm in Michigan. So give us just a little bit of a background, Jessica, into Jessica and her life.
Well, after the dairy farm, after I graduated high school, I went to college for a year on a scholarship and really wanted to serve my community and my country. I decided to go ahead and give up my scholarship and join the military. I realized I was not getting any younger and I'd have to work harder to pass that PRT test, physical exam. And so I went ahead and joined. Fell in love with it. I was in the Navy. I was an aviation electrician. When they told me that most of the jobs were inside of a boat, I could not stand the idea of being locked inside. So I had to be out where I could see the land, or well, not land, but the water and the sky.
The sun.
I loved my job. I loved the crew that I worked with. And unfortunately, I got injured before I ever made it overseas. So I was injured in States. I fell about 10 feet and damaged the entire right side of my body. I had to go through multiple surgeries. I think I've just completed my 13th one this past year, and it really changed who I was. I went from being an active, outdoor, fun-loving person to somebody who it took everything to just even get out of bed in mornings, some mornings. It was a definite change. I became depressed from the injury, and what had happened is I had surgeries to fix what was wrong with the bones and the muscles and the ligaments. But during that, one of my nerves got nicked in my knee. And unfortunately, that caused something called reflex sympathetic dystrophy, or chronic regional pain syndrome. It's the most painful thing ever recorded for humans. It usually does not occur until you're 50 or above, and it does occur more in women than it does men. So I was a 20-year-old that had just gotten out of surgery, was still looking forward to my career in the military, and unfortunately they said, nope, you are far too injured to ever be able to serve your country again. We're going to go ahead and medically retire you. And so it was a huge blow. I had given up, what I felt like was everything at the time as a 20-year-old. To deal with this kind of pain and to deal with, the idea of, I'm not going to be able to go scuba diving or skydiving or all these things that I wanted to do. It was really life-altering for me. But, everything happens for a reason. I'm a big believer in that. And it has led me to what I have a deep, deep passion about. And so everything turned out good. And I'm still walking and still happy.
Everything as a 20-year-old, that's an interesting statement. And that's different. Everything for a 20-year-old is different than everything as a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old. That everything, quote unquote, air quotes here, changes as you move along through life. So once you made it through your surgeries, and I was part of Project Healing Waters in Murphy, in Nashville, the Nashville area on the Caney.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's when you go in, you're thinking, I can tell you just a little bit about what I did. I went in and they were having a picnic, and we were supposed to take some vets fishing, just a few. There was just one or two is all this. It was in its infancy. And this was several years ago. I don't want to date myself, but it was a while back. And the water was high, and nobody really wanted to go out. But I had talked to the person that was coordinated, and they said, the vet's coming all the way from Virginia.
Oh my goodness!
He said he's probably going to be the only one there. He really wants to fish, and I said, okay, well, if the water's cooperative, I'll take him. Mm-hmm. Well, the water wasn't really cooperative, but whenever I sat and talked to him, we sat and talked for a little bit. Just the nicest guy, super laid back, super humble. And I said, all right, I brought my boat, just in case something went. I said, well, we'll just go fish the backwaters. We'll just stay. You had to wear a life jacket the whole time. You had to. When I say jump, don't ask how high, just jump. He was like, okay, yeah, I got you. So we fished. But his story was he was injured on active duty, and he went through that depression that you're talking, probably very similar to what you're talking about. It's hard to compare. But he said, I was just about ready to commit suicide, David. He said, and then my commander came and said, why don't you go down and check out these people that are fly fishing down here at the creek. That he was in the VA. So he did, and he said that changed my life right there. That day changed my life.
It really does, and my story is very similar, and I know a lot of veterans whose story is even more similar. It's incredible how something so small can change your life. Well, so small from a 10-foot fall, so small from catching your first fish and finding that hope again. I'll never forget the first time I caught a fish. It was so tiny. It could fit in my palm, and I am telling you, when I tell the story, it was the biggest, most beautiful thing I had ever seen. It was my beacon of light in the moment that was so dark. And fly fishing does that. It really does.
Not only does it get you outside, and we talked about that a little earlier, being outside. We both like to be outside, obviously. But it also brings you in contact with people.
Yes, and I tell people that all the time. It's not just about fly fishing. It's about the community that it brings you to. I've had so many people in my life that have come from the fly fishing community and have been there for me in times that I didn't have anybody else. My family still lived in Michigan. I couldn't get out and make a lot of friends, and these people were my family. When
we talk through these things, we talk about it, and there are some people that are in fly fishing that, frankly, I wish weren't. But there's a whole lot more that I'm glad they're there, and I'm glad I'm friends with them.
Very, very true.
I've got a really tight-knit group of friends that I've had for a long time.
Oh, yes.
I don't want to say how long, but a long time, and we still get together once a month. And we still cook and eat and tie flies, and sometimes we'll just watch a movie, and sometimes there'll be a life problem that we need to solve, that we solve.
Yep.
And it's just a really good group. They wouldn't be my friends. I'm 100% sure that most of them would not be my friends if I hadn't fished with them and liked them.
Yep.
Fishing's what brought us together. And then whatever happens after that happens.
Fishing brings out honesty in people too. You can really tell their mannerisms and who they are when they're on the river.
Yes, you can. Yes, absolutely you can. When you got into fishing, tell me what happened there. Kind of bring us along in your story.
Well, I had all these surgeries, and it was to try to help me with that nerve damage pain. I don't think I stated it before, but RSD, CRIPS, is a nerve damage, and it sends these signals to your brain that says wherever the problem area is, it's on fire. It feels like somebody is pouring gasoline over me and setting my leg on fire. It's stabbing. If anybody has ever felt a leg or limb fall asleep, you also have those feelings. So every time you try to take a step, you have these pins and needles and burning and stabbing, and it's not always the same amount of pain. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. So I spent those 5 years in and out of a wheelchair. So on my good days, I didn't use a wheelchair. On my bad days, I had to utilize a wheelchair. That was in California when I was still stationed out there. I moved to Tennessee, Eastern Tennessee, and that was back in 2011. I moved here. I went to the doctor it was the VA hospital up in Johnson City.
It's about an hour-ish away from Knoxville. Hour and a half.
An hour and a half. Yeah. It was about 2.5 hour drive for me there, and then 2.5 back, of course. And walked into the pain clinic, figure it was going to be like everything else, here's the medication. I can't take the medication. It makes me sick. Okay, then, find a way to deal with it. I was still extremely depressed. Not proud of it, but it's part of my story. I had not seen the light in a long time, and I was depressed. I wanted to commit suicide. I just couldn't take it anymore. I wanted the pain to stop, and I wanted the pain not only physically, but emotionally and mentally. It drains you. It drains you when you're trying to think of your next step and how you're going to move and how you're going to do something as simple as make yourself food. And so I walked into the doctor's office, and they looked at my leg and they said, your body's cutting off circulation. We need to go ahead and amputate. And I begged them not to. And so they said, okay, let's go ahead and, give you a couple options. One of them was a neurostimulator implanted in my spinal cord. I went through a psychological exam. I was so depressed I failed it. I asked them to please hear my case, that it was because of the pain that I was depressed, and if it made it feel better, I could deal with the depression and I could get better. They finally cleared me, and I had a week trial, and once I woke up from the surgery, I remember the sheet being on my leg, and I started getting really panicked because that hurt. That was something that was painful for me. And so I started going through an anxiety attack trying to push it off, and I had accidentally touched my leg. And usually I jerk from any kind of sensation on my leg, and I was able to touch it, and I just broke down and cried. It was a moment that was so much relief for me, and I had a little bit of hope again.
Turning point in life, right?
It really was. It really was. Well, with recovery, it wasn't just physical therapy. It was also psychological therapy, and I needed it. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's something that if you need it, you need it. And so when I was talking to her, she asked me about my past, and I had told her, growing up on the farm and loving fishing, and she had just gotten word of this group called Project Healing Waters. She recommended that I join it. At first, I was really nervous. I hadn't been around people. I wasn't much of a people person, from being locked inside and having a hatred.
Right.
It was just a lot of hate in my heart at the time. And I took her up on it. I said, what do I got to lose? So we didn't have a chapter here in Knoxville. And so I reached out to the organization, and they created a chapter for me. And so I was one of the first participants. I'll never forget, it was a fly tying demonstration. And I walk into a fly shop, Three Rivers Fly Shop, and there's about 20 volunteers, and there's like 2 of us.
That's kind of the way this thing goes.
Oh my gosh, it really is. So many people, good people, willing to give up their time. And I was intimidated, but I tied my first woolly booger. It was olive green, my favorite color. I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? I enjoy it. And so that's really what brought me to fly fishing.
That's a long trek from a surgery to a woolly bugger.
I know.
How many, 5 years, you said? Was that 5-6 years, something like that? It's a long time to be in that state. And we were talking earlier about pain and how you have those ups and down days,
Oh,
but
yes.
Pain over time is different than, I broke my finger or, broke my leg even. Extended days of pain is not easy to deal with.
It isn't. And I believe you really have to be in the right state of mind. And it really is mind over matter. If you can deal with the pain in a healthy way, find a healthy way to cope, then it can really change your life.
Shift your focus into something else as much as you possibly can, and
exactly,
that'll help you get through it. A lot of the vets that I've worked with, and I haven't worked with a ton, but I've worked with my share of them, they have something's going on. And I don't ask. You know, I figure, hey, if you want to tell me, great. If you don't, cast right over there, and we're going to try to catch another fish.
That's the way to go about it.
It's kind of my job to help them, try to help them catch a fish. So I don't really talk about them, but some will talk, and it just leaves me, okay, me taking a day off, coming up here and guiding somebody for Project Healing Waters is well worth my time.
Yes.
Just like casting for recovery, whenever I do that, I get way more out of it than the participant does every time, without fail.
Yep.
Without fail, it's got to be better for me than it is for them, because it's awesome. So after you tied your first fly, tell us kind of where you didn't stop there.
No.
You do fish.
Yep.
We're getting there.
Oh, yeah. It's a long story, but I promise it's worth it.
We've got time. Oh, it's worth it. I know it's worth it.
So I tied my first fly, and one of the volunteers there, his name was Buffington, and he is just such an incredible man. He is one of those people that his heart is way bigger than the amount of time that he can share with everybody. And so I really felt blessed that he took me under his wing. He started taking me out and teaching me how to cast, teaching me about the difference of the dry flies and the nymphs, where they go in the water, teaching me about everything having to do with fly fishing. Not only that, he also helped teach me how to be safe about approaching the water. There's so many little tips and tricks I learned. Fishing the tailwaters, he taught me, okay, pick out something that's sticking above the water. If you see the water rising above that, you need to make your way out. Don't spend another second, casting. It's not worth it.
Don't wait.
Exactly. Because you can't always hear the horns when they're releasing. And so it was small things like that just really made me feel confident in the sport and being able to get out there, which is something that's really different when you have to depend on so many different people. To be able to have that confidence to get out there, it was just incredible. And it was a little bit intimidating. I was the only female in the group for a very, very long time. And so growing up with a lot of brothers and sister, I was very competitive. So I was like, okay, you're not going to beat me. I'm going to beat you. And so it just kind of got me out of my comfort zone of being alone, and it put me back out there, which was really important in the recovery process. Buzz, he even taught me the difference between cold water fish. With trout, you only want to fish when it's 55 degrees to 65 degrees. Otherwise, it exhausts them, and, they really can't handle that, and how they're so fragile. I had grown up with fish that you could lip, stick your finger in their lip, and trout, that's not the case. They're so strong, but they're so fragile in the same moment. And he taught me about the gill plate, how you're not supposed to put your hand in there, what the difference between barbless and barbed hooks are, and what benefit it has. I mean, it was an overload of information, but it was so wonderful. I felt like I was back in school learning such an important thing in life, and it was worth studying for.
Knowing Buzz, it seems like the way that he would approach something from a conservation-minded approach, I would say.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to approach it this way so that you learn what the right way is. And everybody's got a different term for right.
Exactly.
That means different things to different people. But to Buzz, that meant we're going to do it this way.
Yes.
And you're going to get good at it this way. And as far as it's you being the only female, they learn faster because they listen.
Yes.
They don't go watch a YouTube video and start flailing away. They're like, okay, tell me what to do, and then I'll do it.
Yep.
And then he probably put some repetition in there for you.
He did.
It's okay. We're gonna work on this first.
Yep.
Then we're gonna work on this. And then we're gonna work on this. I kind of grew up fishing the Clinch, as far as that's where my second fly fishing life started, basically. And safety on that water. I've been there whenever the horn goes off, and you don't hear it, because whatever's going on is going on. He's right. That rock means everything.
It does.
When the water starts coming up.
That's your lifeline.
Yeah, and you can get in some spots here on this river that you'll be there, until you start floating.
Yep.
Because you won't be able to get back to where your car is.
And that was something else that he really helped me with. He taught me the importance of a waiting staff. A lot of people, they're like, oh, it's just, for the older people that need it. No. Oh my gosh, it is a saving grace.
Yes.
And, he's like, Jess, if you get yourself into a sticky situation and you lose your waiting staff or you don't have it, he's like, if it's between you and your fly rod, you take that fly rod, you have it and you use that as your waiting staff. And it was stuff like that really helped me through it, and to see that this is a sustainable sport. Even though, I have disabilities, I can still be out there on the water. I just have to do it in a more cognitive manner, and it was great. It was actually better physical therapy, of course, mental therapy, but physical therapy, you don't realize how much work you're actually doing. The water doesn't care that I have disabilities. The fish don't care that I have disabilities. So I'm going to have to really focus on moving my feet through the water and how I step and where I step. And, I do want to catch that fish, but is it safe for me to do it? And so it made me feel like a person again. It made me feel like I could do something. And that was an incredible feeling.
And just a little bit of flow of water and you trying to walk against it.
It's difficult.
It is difficult, but it's also some fantastic exercise because you don't think, oh, this is so hard. Mm-hmm. Like me trying to run.
Oh my gosh.
If I try to run, it's like, okay, if I can just make it to the next mailbox.
Oh yeah.
I've still got my house in sight, but I'm like, okay, if I could just make it to the stop sign. And then finally I'm like, this is awful.
Oh, I hate running. I tell people all the time, if we go out fishing together, you don't have to worry about bear bait because I'm not even going to try to run. It would just be a sad story.
But after that, in that same situation, if I had to fish that same length of river,
oh yeah,
it wouldn't be a problem at all. Mm-hmm. I can do it, Give me a couple hours. If I have to, I can cover the whole thing.
And that was something else that was fantastic. Buzz pushed me. And he would be like, okay, we'll park right next to the river, but we're going to fish to over here. And if walking distance, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I was like, what, are you insane? We'd go into the water and, he's like, okay, we're here. And I was like, what? What? We made it that far? It's like, wait, I have to get out and go back. I don't want to go back. I want to go further.
It'll do that too, won't it?
Mm-hmm. That infamous one more cast. Oh my gosh. That has gotten me in trouble more times than not.
It's got all of us. We don't mean that, right?
Oh no, I know.
That's totally
it's a bold-faced lie, but hey.
It's a myth. So he took you, did you fish the Clinch quite a bit?
We did. So this was an area that really the Knoxville chapter congregated around. Eventually, I actually helped create a tournament for veterans through Project Healing Waters on this river. Miller's Island, it has a handicap accessible ramp now, and I helped fight for that. It was something that was really important. One of the things I love about fly fishing, it's not like soccer, it's not like basketball or any other sport really. It's a sustainable sport. You can do it with disabilities. You can do it when you have any kind of pain, as long as you're safe about it. And, injuries, it's really a healthy sport. You can activate muscles that you didn't even know you had and really strengthen around muscles, main muscles and ligaments that are maybe worn down. And it's really fantastic. A lot of people, they ask me, well, how do I do it? If I can't stand very long, I take a lawn chair out and I sit and I've cast, and I learned and taught myself how to cast, sitting down. You'll see me sitting on rocks all the time. I'd rather sit rather than fall and face plant. Which if you ever see me on the river and I face plant, you have to rate me. I'm waiting until I get to a 10.
So what's your favorite part of the Clinch? I don't want to know the favorite spot.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Everybody's got their favorite spot.
You're not getting my secret spot.
I'm not getting there. But what's your favorite part?
So, wading, I really, really, really love. We call it the dark side and the light side of the island. I really like that light side, the side that not many people are willing to travel to because it's a pain to get back. But I love that light side of the island. Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. And honestly, the Clinch was the first one I ever went down a drift boat on. So I love drifting from Miller's Island. If I'm having a good day, a pretty much pain-free day, I love to go to the jailhouse. If not, then I like to get out at Peach Orchard. But it's a great little float, and it's so much fun.
Now, the jailhouse, for you folks that don't know about the Clinch, the jail is right beside the river. She's not talking about she likes to go to jail.
Oh, no.
She's talking about going to the jail to park up in that area and fish that area, which is there's a lot of sharp rocks.
Oh, yes.
And when the river's off, there's not a lot of places for the fish to go. So it's kind of get a little bit easier shot at them sometimes, but it's also very difficult to move around there.
It is. And that's what I love about it. It's challenging.
Yeah, it is.
You've got your soft water, your frog water, and then you've got these riffles, and it's like, hold on, boys and girls, and, put up your big boy pants, because here we go.
You're talking about the light side of the island. I took a guy there. Let's just say he's a friend. And he sort of is. But he was...
You know who you are.
Yeah. He's actually a relative. I don't want to give too much away. He's actually a relative. Not that he's going to listen to this, but he said, he was going to school at the vet school at UT. Mm-hmm. And he found out I fished, and let's go fishing. So I took him to the light side of the island, and we fished, and we caught there's some nice fish there.
Oh, they're fantastic.
And it's easy to fish if the water's clear, which it generally is. It's even clear today.
Yeah.
So you can see the bottom, and you can see where the fish are. So we fished for them. And then I came back like 2 weeks later on a Friday afternoon when I knew nobody would be there. And him and two of his buddies were standing in my hole right there. And I was
that's messed up.
That really... I went and found some other fish, but I never took anybody back there.
Mm-hmm. I have a hard time. I love sharing water with people and sharing the passion of fly fishing. But I do have one or two spots that, they're mine.
Yeah, right. Exactly. We may fish one of my favorite spots, but we're not going to stay there long. You might catch a fish on it, and then I'm going to, I know a better spot.
Yep. Yep.
So Buzz takes you to the Clinch, and you're getting your fly fishing career, if you will, is starting to take off.
It really is.
And then what happens?
So he takes me to the Clinch. I fall in love with it. It's a really diverse tailwater, and I really like that. You have the opportunity to catch brook trout, which most people don't realize. There's brook trout in here. There's brown trout, and then you also have rainbows. You have, more warm water fish. You have the opportunity to catch striper. You have the opportunity to catch bass. I mean, it's just so diverse. But he takes me out, and I fall in love with it. I maybe only go 1 or 2 times out on the water, and I slip and fall. By this time, I was going back to college to study for a degree and finish my college career. And I slipped and fell while I was at school, and it broke my stimulator. And that's in my spinal cord. So I have to go back and have it replaced. And with the surgery, it's very, very crucial that you allow the scar tissue to heal around your spinal cord, to allow it to heal around the battery pack that's inserted. I call it my love handle. So I've got a big old battery, got to recharge the batteries, literally. So I had to have that replaced. And with that surgery, I was down for about 4 to 6 months. Yeah. So I had just gotten, this passion established. I'm freaking out. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't be out on the water. I start getting depressed again. And my therapist says, hey, if you can't be out on the water, why don't you bring the water to you? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like a glass of water? That's not going to do the trick. I do that all day.
Yeah. Obviously you don't understand.
I know. I'm like, you don't know what you're saying. Stop it. No, she suggests art. And so I started creating artwork and it's perfect for me when I'm not able to be on the river, even now, days that I'm in pain and I can't go out and I want to. I either sit there and practice my casting or I create artwork and I create pictures and memories of these fish that I caught or the times that I've been or the places I've been. And it really helps me get back into that healthy mindset. It gets me back into the point where I say, yes, I may not be able to go today, but I may be able to go tomorrow or the next day after that, or it may be a week that I'm down, but I know I can get back to that river. I know I can get back to that point. And so it was really healthy for me and made me whole again. There was that part that was missing for me, and art really helped me fill that back up. But the first time, I have to tell this little story because Buzz was so proud of me. The first time I got to go back fishing was actually at a Project Healing Waters fly fishing tournament. It was in Virginia, and it was called the Mossy Creek Fly Invitational.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I go to it. I meet one of my best friends. Obviously we talked about the community. She was my sponsor. And so we were the first all-female fishing team ever for Project Healing Waters. And we get on the river, become best friends instantly. We're loving it. And I'll never forget the first thing I held, because you do have a weight restriction while you're recovering from the surgery that I had. The first thing that I held that was over 5 pounds was a rainbow trout.
Really?
And it was the biggest trout to date that I had caught. And I remember the guide was freaking out. My partner was freaking out. Everybody was freaking out. I was holding my breath, which I didn't realize at the time until I, actually had it in net. After I let that breath out, I sat down and cried and cried and cried. That was the most special fish to me. Well, we fished, the first half of the day, the second half of the day, and the tallies come in, and lo and behold, me and my partner won.
Oh.
And I was so nervous and so excited and just a basket full of emotions. Half the time I would cry, laugh, and then turn into tears. It was terrible.
Terrible Terribly good, right?
Exactly. Terrible for everyone around me, but awesome for me.
So you go from having nice, peaceful days on the river, enjoying yourself on the Clinch and wherever around East Tennessee, you go in for a surgery, you start doing art, and you end up in a tournament, which I've always said David can't fish tournaments because David would put all his focus in that tournament and wouldn't do anything else that David needed to do. But that's me. I'm highly competitive in a lot of different ways.
Me too.
But how do you turn that part on and off? Because I can't turn the competitive David isn't very nice usually. I mean, he's super focused. Yep. David is super focused. The competitive David is super focused. Let's put it that way.
That's the way that I tend to be as well. But for me, fly fishing is so much more. And so, everybody cracks up whenever they fly fish with me. We'll be a half a mile apart. Whatever. They're like, Jess, we don't need to ask you how many you caught. That we heard you every single time giggling and laughing. And they're like, oh my gosh, people hear you everywhere. And that's what fly fishing is for me. It doesn't matter if it's my first fish or my 1,000 fish. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a new species, if it's tiny, wild, it's just so magical for me. And so at that moment, I was so grateful for it. But I will say, after that win, I was like, nope, I'm going to be one and done, because then I can say, yeah, I won all the tournaments I've ever been in. I'm 100%.
That's right. So how did y'all fish in the tournament?
So it's a spring creek, and they didn't anticipate that we would actually do very well, any of the vets. It was 11 of us, 11 veterans and 11 sponsors. And the spring creek was really low. It was a really sunny day. It was terrible, terrible fishing conditions, just really, really bad. And, I'm new to fly fishing. And so, my best friend, Lizzie, she's not. She goes with her dad all the time. And she was amazing. And so she's very patient with me. My guides were very patient with me. We were throwing bug after bug after bug after bug, and everybody was like this, and nobody was catching anything. And so I'm sitting on the bank and I'm looking through the fly box. They give you a box of pre-tied flies that the volunteers have done. And so I'm going through the box and I pick out this one that has just a little blue shimmer to it, and it's black, and it looks ugly. And I'm like, I like you. And so I bring it over to my guide, and I was like, hey, would this one work? And he starts laughing, and he's like, you know what? Why not? He ties it on, and that's when I caught that first big 5-pound trout. And he's like, oh my gosh. And he's going buck wild, like just crazy. And, he's like, hurry up, stop crying, get up and fish again. I'm like, okay. So I'm crying as I'm casting, just so happy, and 2 more casts, and I catch another trout that was 5 pounds. And so I hand the rod over to Lizzie, and Lizzie starts fishing. She catches, and we're in like the last 5 minutes of the tournament. Come to find out, some of the volunteers had been a little tipsy while they were tying, and they had no pattern for this one. It was something the guy made up and said nobody in their right mind would ever fish this, but hey, let's put it in there as like a joke fly. And so I asked him, I'm like, what are you going to name it? And the guy who made it, he's a bigger fella, and he just looks down at me, crossed his arms, and he goes, I'm going to name it the Bird Turkey.
Bird Turkey.
And I was like, okay, can I have like 5 more of them? Nobody else in the tournament, they all knew what they were doing. I had no idea. That fly took it.
Good. So do you think your art kind of helps you pick out flies? Maybe not necessarily that one, but others?
I do. I'm very, very, very focused on detail. Very detail oriented. If you look at my artwork, it's very detail oriented.
It is. I'm looking at it right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is detailed, and it's. I can see that you've got different color. I'm pointing here at this brown trout on the cup here.
Oh yeah,
the nice little. It's got a like iridescent kind of color along its lateral line, with super dark on top, and it gets lighter and lighter as you go down to the bottom. So I can see where you'd be very detailed.
Yes, and brown trout are my absolute favorite, so I am very much so addicted to them.
We all are.
Oh my gosh, yes.
We all have that, not all, but I can tell you this, all my friends do, and I do too. Like, that's the fish that we really want to catch.
Oh my gosh, yes. They're so stunning, and they're so aggressive, and they take it in so many, they take a nymph, they take it dry, they take a streamer, and once you have it on, you're like, oh, yep, it's brown.
Yeah, you kind of know. So a rainbow, I like to say a rainbow is like a river edition of a tarpon. It's going to run and jump and
shake its head,
run back at you.
Oh yeah.
Brown trout, a lot of times will just go to the bottom and start trying to rub that fly off.
Oh yeah.
And so it's digging. Okay, this is probably a brown.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of just their way of letting you know that, hey, I'm on here.
Oh yes.
Get ready, especially the bigger ones. You better get ready.
And don't get me wrong, I love, around here people call them speckled trout, but brown trout or brook trout.
Brook trout, yeah.
Yeah, the wild brookies, they fascinate me. Those little stinkers, they'll be like 3 inches and they'll take a fly that's an inch wide.
Yes.
I mean, they can't even fit the feather tail in the mouth, but they're gonna try.
Their head is usually too big for their body. The way some of the smaller ones that up in the Smokies, maybe they're not getting quite enough to eat.
Yeah,
but their mouth is just. It doesn't fit. They should be a foot long when they're 8 inches long. And
exactly.
If you just measure off their mouth, they can be aggressive and fun.
They are so much fun.
Yeah, we would, when I lived here, or I lived in Knoxville, we would go every Friday evening. Me and my buddy would go and fish up Lynn Camp. And we would stop at the gas station there at the bottom of the hill in Townsend.
Yep.
And there used to be this old wooden bench out there, and one whole summer, we would come back every Friday night, after we got done fishing. We would walk out after dark. We'd fished all the way up and then walk back down and get out after dark, always, every time. But when we would stop by the gas station, there's 2 old guys, at least 2, sometimes 3 and 4, but usually just 2. And the same old guy, we drove up in the same vehicle all summer. And he acted like he had never seen us, and he would say, "Y'all been fishing?" "Yep." "Catch any specks?" "Yep." Or, "Nope, I love me some specks." And the first time he asked me, I said, "No." And then we got back in the truck, and I asked Pat, I was like, "What did he say?" He said, "Specks, David." "Like glasses?" "No." That's what he's calling brook trout.
Oh my gosh. It always cracks me up with some of the names. Kelly Gallup's flies are hilarious. And so
they're made to catch anglers.
Oh yeah, they really are.
The names are made to catch anglers.
My Lord. So I'll never forget a few of the times, my family doesn't fly fish. They do go out with me. I actually got to put my dad, my little brother, my sister-in-law on their first fish on the fly rod. But I decided for my 28th birthday, I was going to treat myself and go out to Colorado and fish the whole entire state as much as I could.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so my mom, being my loving mom, she's like, "Honey, what are you doing for your birthday?" And I was like, "Mom, I'm going to go get me a brownie." And she's like, "Jessica, Megan, I swear to God, if you take a pot brownie, I'm going to kill you." And oh my gosh, just went on and on. I'm like, "What are you talking about, woman?" And she's like, "I swear, don't you dare. You keep pure and innocent." And I'm like, "Mom, I'm talking about a brown trout." She's like, "Oh, have fun, honey." And going back to, sometimes I love messing with her, and she'll call and she'll be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm playing with the sex dungeon." And she's like, "What?" She's learned just to ignore me now.
Right,
but it was fun in the beginning.
So when you went out to Colorado, did you just go out there by yourself? How did you do that?
I ended up asking a girlfriend to go with me. I told her I'd pay her way as long as she was there to help me navigate, because some of it, it's not safe for me to always go to the river. So the first place we stopped was Estes Park. Stunning. Oh my gosh, stunning. The first fish I ever caught in Colorado was a greenback cutthroat. Oh, I was so happy. I was so happy that I lost my balance and fell down. And so I'm sitting there. She had taken off. She was excited too. Completely understandable.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm sitting there, screaming for help. An hour goes by. I'm like, screw this. So I start playing with rocks, and picking them up and playing with them. And this little muskrat comes by me, and he must have known that I wasn't a threat, because he came like 2 feet from within me, and I'm just sticking my hand out. I'm like, do they have rabies? Do they not? This is a good way to go out anyway. I'm on the river.
So were you up in the park, in Rocky Mountain National Park?
Yeah, that's where I started out, Estes Park. Then I went to Colorado Springs. I went to Fort Collins, Steamboat Springs. I mean, just all over.
You put some miles on the vehicle.
Oh, I sure did.
Yeah.
Oh, I sure did. And it was this ugly little red thing, which made it great because I couldn't lose it. Fantastic. So,
which was your favorite river out there?
I think it's going to sound weird, but I think it was the Yampa River, because it schooled me. There was fish rising all around me. We're under this bridge. They're rising all around me, and I throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at them because I got so angry with them. And it took me a moment to sit down and just look at the beauty around it and just start watching the fish. And that was one of my favorite moments. It was the only time that I never caught a fish, on the rivers that I fished. Even Breckenridge was fun to fish.
Yeah.
And it schooled me, and it really made me sit down, and it was like, wow, these fish are incredible. I mean, they're so smart, and they're so cunning, and you know, they are not stupid.
No.
And it was amazing because it really made me think about a different perspective. And so it was gorgeous. The scenery was perfect. The fish were being complete jerks. They were giving me the fin and not their mouth. So
some days it's just that way.
Oh, it is.
You know, a friend of mine told me, it was actually up at Tellico. I was going to fish with another friend. My buddy Pat, that really took me under his wing, wasn't going. And I was like, man, I don't know if I can fish up there and catch anything. He says, you'll be fine. He said, just get a high vantage point and sit and watch the river, see what the fish are doing, and then slide your way down there and work your way to them and catch them.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting up on top, right up next to the road. And you know how the road is pretty good ways from the river in a lot of spots.
Yes.
I'm sitting up there, and, you know, just sitting at the road. And the guy that I went with, he fishes Army style. Like, he won't spend more than 2 seconds in any one spot. So he's moving, and I purposely went upstream of him, probably maybe a mile. And then I just sat down, and I was sitting there. I thought, well, I'll sit here and watch these fish, and I'll eat my sandwich, and then I'll go down there and catch them, because I could see them rising. And I was watching where they would rise up, and then they would go back down. I was watching where they would go to, you know, beside rocks and whatever. And I'm sitting there. I'm just about ready to go down. Okay, I'm about ready to go down. And here comes the guy that I was fishing with, Army style. And he gets up to me, and he sees me sitting on the bank, and he like walks right through the water that I've been sitting there watching. Oh, no. And he just looks up at me and goes, what are you doing sitting up there? And I said, I'm watching the fish. He goes, where are they? And I said, you just stepped on about 10.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So sitting and watching the fish, sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes you just come to the conclusion that maybe it's not your day.
Exactly. Well, I actually picked up a trick. I had so I like to create my own hatch, is what I call it. You know, you have a 2-hook limit. And so if I have a ratty looking fly, or, you know, it was a big brown, I'm going to say this, it's only happened like twice. But if I had a big fish, you know, bend the hook and destroy it, I'll cut the back end of the hook off, and I'll tie it on the back end of, like, say 2 dry flies. I'll have, you know, maybe 2 more, 1 more, and the hooks will be off so they can't catch. But I like to create my own hatch, and I've really seen a lot of fish come up to it, and I'll put different dry fly patterns on in different sizes and see which one they come up to, and it's an easy way for me to figure it out. But those fish weren't having it that day, I tell you what.
That's interesting, because just the other day, it's probably been a few weeks ago now, we'll say, probably been longer than that, I decided we parked the boat, and I said, I'm just going to fish this pattern over and over and over, a floating pattern, sort of a dry. I just kept fishing it over and over and over in the same spot, and I knew the fish were eating, and I knew I was dialed in on the pattern, but I knew it wasn't like a huge hatch going on. It was kind of sporadic, actually, but I just kept fishing it over and over and over and over, and then finally, I bet I floated that fly through there 20 times.
My goodness. And
that fish came up and ate it. And I got you. I tricked you into thinking that a hatch was coming off or something. I know you saw something down up here that you liked.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I say in my mind. It's probably, you know, a dinner bell probably went off in his head, and he thought, oh, I'll go up there and eat that. But anyway, that's the way David saw it.
It always fascinates me, and I try to think about, like, what in the world is this fish thinking right now?
Yeah, right. You just have to remember their IQ is about a 6, probably.
And they're smarter than me, darn it.
They just have good instincts. That's what I choose to believe. They have good instincts. Well, your background and then your coming into fly fishing the way you did, that opens some doors and hopefully gives some folks out there listening, maybe they know someone that needs to get out for whatever reason.
Yes.
And this is just fly fishing again. It's a great sport to get into, pastime, whatever we're going to call it, to get into.
Yes.
So that, and you meet some really, really terrific people.
You never can be too young or too old to get into it.
No.
I've taught, Girl Scouts. I had a 4-year-old that could cast, 20, 30 feet, which was really impressive.
Yeah. And then you meet Buzz.
Yeah.
You end up fishing the Clinch quite a bit. It looks like you've got that I love the Clinch, because it's really kind of where I started fly fishing.
Yep.
I mean, I had fly fished before that, but really whenever I decided I was going to get back into it, I ended up on the Clinch below what's known as Billy Goat Hill, which, nobody knows what that is.
No.
So the story behind that is Pat and his buddy fish the Clinch pretty much every day. Mm-hmm. It's right by Massingale Bridge.
Okay.
That's where it is. But that hill up there, somebody killed a goat and just dumped it out on the hill,
on
the side of the hill where it got hit by a car or something. They would come down, and they couldn't fish that area for, probably 2 or 3 weeks because the smell was so horrible.
Oh, yeah.
And they called it Billy Goat Hill. because that's where the goat had died.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, so we started fishing, really kind of fishing there and fishing all that pocket water in there and those ledges and those drop-offs and stuff. So kind of got that same feel for the Clinch that it looks like you have.
Yes.
And your buzz, I had Pat. But your story took a little bit of a different turn in the surgery, but out of it came some terrific artwork.
Yes, it has brought me so many opportunities. Now that I'm to a healthy point in my life, I love to give back, and that's something that's so important. Once you gain that passion, once you gain that confidence in something, it's really important to pass it on. And the great thing about fly fishing is that you have the conservation side to it too. So even teaching kids, teaching adults. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard some ridiculous comments, and I love them, God love them. But, you're putting your boat in here. Why do you have to park down there? Doesn't it just go in a circle? It's like, all right, folks, This is not a lazy river. I didn't know fish lived in water or lived there. And I'm like, it's water. Yeah. Where else would it live?
Probably going to be some in there.
Yeah. So it's, it's really important to teach people and to give them a love and a passion, even if they don't enjoy fly fishing. Give them something to look at. I mean, I volunteer with many different organizations, and honestly, it's brought me to some really cool places. I work with Soul River, and I've gotten to go to the Arctic and work with the Gwich'in Nation, and it's brought me to DC, and I've spoke to congresswomen about the importance of not only our national parks and our public lands, but also veterans memorials. And there's so much that I've gained from fly fishing, and it's just been incredible. Like I said, the people that you meet in it, they're your champions. They want you to succeed. And I've gotten so many opportunities because of it. I've been to Scotland, I've been to Patagonia, I've been to Belize, I've been to all these incredible places because people wanted me to experience it.
People want to help.
They do.
They really do.
And without those people, I can't tell you where I would have been. And it's not just in the beginning. It's been through my whole journey. When I go through surgery, it's hard. It's very hard to be in a positive mindset when okay, not only am I going to have to deal with pain, I'm going to have to deal with the recovery and, not being out there. And okay, how am I going to deal with tomorrow? TV isn't the greatest. Social media has the ability to be phenomenal, but it also has the ability to be terrible and degrading and horribly hurtful. And so, there's not much that you can really do to replace that feeling that fly fishing gives you.
Yeah, and the camaraderie and that sort
yes.
of thing. Well, I appreciate you coming out and meeting with me high above the Clinch River. Like I said, the mobile studio today, I'm about 3 hours away from home probably. The river is unfishable at the moment.
Yes.
They're running all the sluice. There's a little bit of water coming across the top, and then they're generating too, so it's big water today.
Yeah, if you are trying to go out fishing, please do not go to Miller's Island. You can't even get to the ramp. It's covered up to the stairs.
Right. And Miller's Island isn't an island right now. I'm sure it's probably completely underwater. Well, Jessica, tell us again where we can find you on the...
You can find me at Jessica Callahan on Facebook, Callihan. On Instagram, it's at Jessica Callahan Fly Fishing. And I also have 2 websites. One is at Etsy, J Callahan Art, and the other one is at www.jessicacallahan.com.
You can find Southeastern Fly at southeasternfly.com and Southeastern Fly everywhere else social media. If you listen to the podcast and enjoy it, love to have you give us a 5-star rating, if you will, and if you could comment, give us a comment. Again, I appreciate you coming out. I thank all the listeners out there that really make this thing go, and see you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Call it the death march up to Fish Creek Falls, which is, I don't know, three miles up or some crap like that. It was ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, no.
It was terrible. It was like 100 and something stories.
Oh, my Lord.
We went up 100 stories on my little walk thing that I have on my phone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And people would go, all right, you're almost there. You're almost there. And when we started out, you could see these falls. And I told Delaney, she said, I want to go hike. She's all into hiking. I was like, I told my wife, I don't really want to hike. But I will. Of course, she's saying, well, you really need to. Delaney wants to, and she's going to be going off to school and blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, I'll go. So I see the falls. I'm like, this isn't far. I can see them from here. So we walk down there, and she goes, we sit down there and play in the water a little bit. And she says, all right, y'all ready to go?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. She says, okay, the falls are up this way. I was like, what? She said, the falls are up this way. They're up this trail. So we get going. I thought I was in pretty good shape. Mm-hmm. I wasn't at all.
Been there, done that.
We're going up the switchbacks and up the trail, and I'm stopping. These old people, they come walking by. Mm-hmm. So, of course, at first I'm like, oh, hey, how are y'all? And by the time they got by,
I can totally breathe.
Yeah, this is really working. And then people coming down would go, oh, it's not that much further, which is a total lie, the lie. Yeah. Then I was like, y'all just go ahead. I'll come, And then it was like, if I can make it to that tree, if I can just make it to that tree, I can hang on to that tree. So I would make my way up to the tree, hang on to the tree, try to get my breath. All right, if I can make it to that rock, I'll make it to that rock. Then there's a dude that comes running by. He came out of a little side trail, and he was waiting for some people to pass us. So he's standing running, My wife goes, are you running from something, or are you just out running? He says, I'm just out running. He said, I had 2 beers last night. I'm trying to run them off.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, so you can get
show off.
Yeah. And then he takes off running up the hill. When we got up there, of course, Delaney's like, oh, I'll get my picture up there on the falls. I'm like, it's going to have to happen. I'm going to have to be able to take that picture from right here. Because I am not climbing up that waterfall with you. Mm-mm. She was in much better shape than I was. But anyway, that was, But I love it out there. It's so much fun to go out there.
Me too. Just the winters are too much.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that at all.